I can look at every moment of discipleship, promotion, elevation in my life and connect it to a person. If you're ever going to discover you, you have to discover the God who created you, and your pain doesn't disqualify you from being in His presence. His presence is the place that you actually process it.
Well, I want to welcome you to the Lead to Win podcast, where we help leaders win in the areas of life that matter most. We're joined today by Pastor Jeff, as always, and our special guest, Tauren Wells.
What's
Tauren, we're so
happening?
glad that you're here.
Glad to be
Tauren,
here.
your list of accomplishments is great.
Irrelevant.
Right? It's not. I'm going to do it anyways.
As a pastor now?
Listen, but
irrelevant.
The people need to know. So 10-time Grammy nominee, 8-time Dove Award winner. This is hard to put your brain around. More than 1 billion streams worldwide, nearly 500 million views, 7 #1 radio hits. You just dropped a new single, Thank You for the Cross, new album later this year.
Yeah.
You've got the High Note podcast. Your first book's about to come out, Joy Bomb, right? And on top
There
of
will
all
be
that,
joy.
Come on, sing,
Hey.
Bishop.
and on top of all that, you just planted the Church of Whitestone a little over a year ago.
Yep.
You and your wife, Lorna, 4 boys.
4 boys. Yeah.
You got a lot going on. The Lord's blessed you with a
And
lot.
let's
Yeah.
just settle this. Lorna, to meet her
Yo.
is where you see the power, right?
Absolutely.
She's amazing.
She is legendary, truly.
She's amazing.
She really
Yeah.
is amazing.
And that's really, I'm so excited about having you here. My team asked me for like 5 years to do a podcast. And we started the Lead to Win podcast because I have relationships and people, and I'm learning, and my son is doing young adults, and so I've started thinking more about the podcast impact, really. And I thought, at my phase of life now, not that I'm at the last end leg, but I'm far enough into it that it's like I feel some sense of a stewardship
Yeah.
to just share the conversation.
Yep.
And so I'm just glad to have you. When I see all those accolades, which I think are amazing, I text you when you were hosting the Dove Awards, and I thought you were live.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, you're doing good.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it was good. I'm at the crib. I'm in my sweats, not my sequins.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, thank you on behalf of, normally I'd be on the other side of this listening, but thank you for holding this door open for all of us. I actually got to be in the room for podcasts with John Maxwell and some of the other folks that you've already recorded with. And it's just amazing to have access to conversations that you've been having all along the way, but that we don't get to necessarily hear.
Yeah.
So it's been a huge value add to me personally. And then I'll just go ahead and say, Whitestone would not exist without Milestone and without you, without your personal investment. You can edit this out if you want to, because I don't want to create expectation among other church planters. But y'all hired our first staff member.
Not hired it away from you. Helped you hire.
That's usually what
Let me
happens,
rephrase
right?
that. Y'all paid for us to hire.
No
our
one's going to
first-
listen if they think we take staff
You
from.
recruited from our launch team.
That's
greedy.
very, very mean.
But no, seriously, from a personnel standpoint, support, covering, and what people don't know is we go back to 2016. I hadn't really done anything. And you told me 2 things. One, I was too cheap. You blessed me with a great offering. 2, you said that I needed spiritual family. And at that season in my life, it was such a critical thing to hear. And a lot of what has been birthed out of this season in my life came from the seeds of those conversations early on. So thank you, and thank you for letting me be here.
Well, thank you for just your heart and spirit and knowing you back then. You came, you blessed our church. We made connections. Obviously, we have other relationships. And then, I've just celebrated everything God's done through you. But it's not just what you've done, but it's how you've done it. So I want to honor you for having the heart that you do. And I'm just excited about all those accomplishments. But I'm most excited about the fact that I get to see you in a different place and with some other things. It's really, you grabbed a hold of the concept that is my passion, and that is everyone's running a race.
Yes.
Paul says, run to win.
Right.
We a lot of times, and I think there maybe could be a younger listener out there, or I don't know, someone out there that thinks, well, if I got this, nothing wrong with this. If that's your stewardship, then we're celebrating you. But running to win is really, in the context of the scripture, is thinking about eternity.
Yes.
Which is a much longer range viewpoint. So I like to think about winning at what matters most. That's your wife, that's your kids, that's the people that know you the best, respect you the most, and so I've just enjoyed us being able to talk about those topics and connect around those things. And
what I feel has blessed me the most, just kind of coming into this space, because we're connected in multiple ways now. You've had me come speak here, which has been amazing. And
your message, if anyone's listening, I love the church. It was so powerful. It was just really amazing. And there was a real move of God that night. And there was just people impacted in a powerful way. So
people were hungry.
Yeah.
Well, they were spiritually hungry, but y'all were on a 3-day fast. So they literally were like, let's get through. Let's shout him down so we can go to Whataburger.
So you're saying you had a good word, but if people have been fasting for 3 days,
anything sounds good. Yeah. Is the bread warm? But also being able to be connected in the Lead to Win cohort, you know, which has been incredible. But here's why I felt so comfortable, because there are a lot of people who will volunteer themselves into your life.
Yeah.
You know, who want to be a voice when things are happening, but you actually celebrated those things that have happened. It wasn't like, yeah, you've done all that, but now you're going to really get into ministry.
Right.
Like a minimizing of what I've come from and the things that God has allowed me to do.
So true.
And a lot of the pastors club, and I love pastors, and I love the church, and I've got 4 pastors because apparently I'm hard to keep control of. But a lot feel, and I don't know what it is, but there's like a minimizing of like, yeah, you did all of that, but you haven't paid this cost.
Right.
You haven't fought these battles. You ain't done real ministry.
Yeah.
And I know on this side of it, a lot of that's true.
Yeah.
There's a cost of pastoring that you can't even quantify.
Yeah.
But what has given me trust is you building on what God's already done in my life to help me accomplish everything else.
Well, I think that's back to winning at what matters most, but also just so there's people listening who say, "Hey, it's not a Jeff Little Tauren Wells, but it's dad and teenage son. It's staff member. It's youth pastor going." And my thought about that is, even with you, I mean, obviously parents have a bigger role, but that's the power of multiple anchors. No one person. So it really, you weren't leaning in with me to learn how to write a Dove Award song. Trust me, that's not going to happen. You know, I might give you a few thoughts, but I think if I could sing on key, I might actually be a good worship leader. I feel like I got a little flow.
I could sing on key, I might be a good worship. That's a good place to start.
Start with getting the key. Okay.
A lot of people don't start there.
They just feel it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think too is offering what you offer. I don't think one person gives anyone everything, but there are divine relationships that are there to supplement, to supply, to give to those areas. And for me, it wasn't about a lot of these areas. You had such a rich heritage. I really respected your faithfulness to your history and time and serving, and I know all your backgrounds of things that no one sees in the unseen. As some like to say, you know, Tauren was an overnight success, and you're like, it was a long night. You know?
Yes.
So I respect all of that. I respect what God's done with you stewarding your gifts and talents and offering them to the body of Christ. I was singing "There Will Be Joy." That's why I'm excited about the book, because I text you that I play that a lot of times in the morning, and I think it's got such a great message, right? So now you're writing a book or whatever those things are. I still, for me though, think it's me offering to you some of the things that I have from my place that's different than those things. You know? So I think that's
so helpful.
I think that is what maybe people out there listening are looking for, not even necessarily how do you write this song or how do you do that specific thing, but when we start helping people win, what are some of the timeless principles? You and I were just in a room with leaders, and this was the topic of conversation. In today's world, we tend to give formulas. We tend to look for formulas. I say it this way too. There's a lot of places to get information, places to get inspiration, but what we really want is impartation.
That is the difference maker.
Yeah.
We want the impartation of a life that's being lived, things like old school stewardship. We're looking for principles. So the statement that we were gathering around was, it's not about necessarily formulas, though you can get some good formulas. It's about timeless principles.
Yes.
So what are some of the principles? Because there's out there, I hear the songs.
Yeah.
But what they want to know is, tell me about the life. Tell me about the principles you were rallying around.
Yes, and I will definitely answer that question. I think even before you get to the principles, you have to get to a person.
Yeah.
I think that it's so important. Obviously, being a new pastor, doing a lot of preaching, reading a lot of the Bible. It's a great book.
It's good. Yeah.
But there's the instance of the woman who has lost her husband, who was in the company of prophets with Elisha, and when she had a need in her life, she sought out Elisha.
Yeah.
She found a person, and I can look at every moment of discipleship, promotion, elevation in my life and connect it to a person.
Right.
So I think the biggest principle that you have to start with is honoring the people God has in your life right now.
Right.
And absorbing as much feedback as they will give you, because amateurs will make you pay for giving them feedback. Professionals will pay for feedback.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really
And
good.
so this is something my youth pastor taught me early on, is I'm giving you correction and guidance, not because I don't believe in you, but because I do.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And so that has been a principle that has carried me through every season of my life.
Right.
Now, I'm not still calling my youth pastor for what I'm dealing with now, although he is a competent, God-loving individual with his own impact. But God has brought new people into my life that I need to give them permission to challenge me.
It's good.
And I think at a certain point in our life, we realize that growth is no longer inevitable. It's optional.
Right. Yeah.
And when you're initially a new believer, or even if you just break it down to a baby, they're laying down, and then they're rolling over, and they never even thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're pulling up on the coffee table. They never even thought about it. And then they're running, and they never even thought about it. But at a certain point, what's inevitable becomes optional.
It's good.
And you have to choose, again, another challenging voice, another person who will take limits off of your life by telling you what your limits are.
Right.
That's so good.
And so that's been a guiding principle.
So good. So many times, and I love that what you just said. It's a person. So many times the answer to our prayer is a person. Obviously, most of the people, I'm not assuming, because there's all kinds of people listening to this, Jesus could have come any way he wanted to come.
Yes.
But he came as a person.
Yes.
I love to say this. I'm so glad.
You ain't got no organ on this podcast, huh?
Hey, you give me some of that. Hey, maybe I could get a little preach going.
Come on. He came as a person.
He came as a person, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that he's not a philosophy, a statue,
Right.
but he wept.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm glad I serve a Jesus that wept.
Yes.
I always tell people that's the verse you want to memorize in VBS. It's the short verse.
That's right.
Jesus,
The shortest one.
It
Jesus
still counts,
wept.
though.
Absolutely.
It's a memory verse.
Jesus wept, but a lot of people don't know why he was weeping. He was weeping because he had these friends that he would stay with on his travels, and he goes and Lazarus has died. He knows he's going to raise him from the dead, but he still feels the empathy and compassion for the people that are there grieving.
Yes.
I love that homostatic union of that he is fully God, he is fully man.
Yes.
In his godness, he knows he's going to raise him from the dead, but in his humanity, he has compassion and grief.
Yes.
And then what you said, though, Elijah, when he was depressed, Elisha came into his life, right?
Yep.
So a lot of times when you're discouraged or depressed, it's get connected. It's be more. It's a person,
It's a
right?
person.
It was
Yes.
and it was both.
Yes.
I want to say this to maybe someone out there who's like, I wish I could have some people that would pour into me or encourage me. One revelation I had, Elijah had as much need to give to Elisha his mantle
It's really big.
as Elisha had need to receive it.
Wow.
Yes.
That's so good.
You if you posture yourself, you burn everything as he had to do. And Elijah had to open the door, but Elisha had to make the decision
good.
to step through it.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I think there's a lot of people out there. There's probably a lot more access
Yeah.
to more impartation and help, but many times they're not wanting to receive it.
Well,
so.
it's the goats are coached.
Yeah.
I got, like a little acronym, calling out anything causing hindrance.
Yeah. It's
You
real.
need a coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you probably have
I
heard
gotta
this
use
story.
that.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm lead to win, brother.
Calling
Yes.
out anything causing hindrance.
That's
Yeah.
it.
I mean, I
Yeah.
can't. I can give you credit
Yeah.
one time on this podcast.
Yes. And then from then on, it's like I always
Yes.
say.
Yeah, I always say. But you guys have probably heard this. Tim Grover, personal development coach. He's now a pretty well-known name. But in the late 80s, early 90s, no one knew who he was. He wrote a letter to 14 Chicago Bulls, this group forming, and 13 of those players never responded to his inquiry. One did.
We know that one.
Michael Jordan,
Yes.
the best player on the team, the leading scorer, the perennial all-star.
Yeah.
He was the one that actually sought out coaching. And then after Michael got Tim coaching him, because, Michael couldn't beat the Pistons without a coach.
Right.
Shout out Michigan. You feel me? Bring back those
Bad
days.
boys for life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now we're the weak boys, but we're working on it. But without that instrumental life and we see Michael as kind of, cocky, arrogant or whatever. He had the humility to say, I'm not going to the next level by myself.
Right.
That's good.
Dr. Darius Daniels says, you can't be your best self by yourself.
There you
good.
go.
So that the complement of community is so important, and to put yourself in the position to be challenged. I think there is a temptation to allow success or perceived success to allow you to graduate out of,
That's really
I
good.
just know better now.
Yeah.
Right.
The most dangerous place to be.
That's really good. I want to drill a little deeper there because I think you're onto something. I'm hearing you say like we're responsible at a certain point as leaders for our own development, and we have to be the ones who are driving that. So why do you think it's hard? What causes people to resist that? What causes people to why did 13 of the 14 say we're not really interested in that? We probably don't think we need that. To both of you, what do you think makes it hard for people to receive coaching as love, as equipping, as that necessary piece?
Well, I would say, that the hardest person to lead is yourself.
Right.
The hardest person to lead is yourself because the hardest person to see is yourself. And if you can't see yourself, your blind spots, then you don't know the spaces that you actually need feedback in. And it's probably that insecurity, which has led to pride, that is causing you to not allow people to have access there. The other thing is, unfortunately, there have not been a lot of Pastor Jeff Littles or like Pastor Jacob Aranza, who's one of my pastors, Pastor Joel Osteen, who's one of my pastors, guys who actually are invested in your success.
Yeah.
Not your success in as far as I benefit from it,
Right.
but the pure investment
Right.
of watching someone else become. And because there has been such great manipulation
Yeah.
of other talented people, I think there's a low level of trust in
Right.
leaders in general and spiritual leaders.
Right.
You know, the thing about Elijah and Elisha was when Elisha said, I want a double portion, Elijah had to go, okay. Like, how secure.
Whoa.
Right.
I'll give you
leader.
a portion.
Yeah. it's
Right.
true.
But I'm not giving
Double?
Double. Yeah. That's
Like,
a lot.
we always commend Elisha's boldness.
Yeah.
Which my humility would be like, Pastor Jeff, if I could build 10% of this, that'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
And it would be. But to say, I want a double portion says a lot about not just what I feel about you, but the God that you've taught me
It's really good.
about.
Yeah.
That he has greater things. But that ability as the senior leader or the person who's a little bit further along to be willing to say, you catch this mantle, you can have it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
So what you're saying is, and Jed will tell you this, we've been friends for 25 years, and I'm not saying this that I don't have other weaknesses. I can say stupid things. I can get overly reactive at times on certain situations that may not be that. I mean, I will have no problem on the podcast revealing my humanity
Of
and
course.
mistakes that I've made. But I can sincerely say that one of my struggles has not been if they're doing well,
Right.
then that means that there's less for me. And I don't know if I
Right.
just got a supernatural, but I would say to anyone out there, okay, like if you at any level, your kids, I always think about a youth pastor that's a hero somewhere. You've been there, cleaning the church, serving, setting up on Wednesday night, 50 kids coming, and they're just like, am I winning? If the people you serve know
Yeah.
you want more for them
Yes,
than
sir.
you want from them,
Yeah.
huge.
the trust level
Yeah.
Yes.
goes through the roof.
Yes.
It's massive.
And,
Huge.
and I think you hit the nail on the head. I think we've had a lot of pain. We've had our own rejections. We've had things that are real that cause insecurity. But you also, this thing that we have to keep communicating, isolation is not the answer.
Right,
the man who
correct.
isolates himself rages against all sound judgment. So at the end of the day, we got to, as Joyce Meyer used to say, do it afraid. We got to
Yeah.
we got to press into that relationship or go to that thing or
Yes.
have that conversation, right?
Yes.
That can be hard, and we
Yeah.
just we gotta keep pressing through. But
You know that thing that Chris Hodges just said was, you need models and mentors.
Right, right.
You know, I think that, you would maybe know the history around this more, but it seems like the generation beyond you, like few and far between, there were actual fathers
right,
who knew what it meant to be a father, and I mean like practically and spiritually.
Sure.
yeah,
And so you raised a generation, or didn't raise, a generation of sons who don't know how to be sons.
right,
It's a big
So,
deal.
and then there's no model. Like, I grew up, I feel like, in a context that had a lot of unhealthy Sauls
yeah,
that were just ready to throw arrows, really just at the next generation in general.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I'm going to preach to you that I believe in you, and you're going to write the
Right.
greatest
Right.
songs, and you're going to build the greatest ministries.
Yeah.
But if you don't decide to put on my armor
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
so that from a distance it looks like me,
Yes.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
then I'm going to have a major issue with that, and now you have become my enemy. And so having the examples, and I mean this genuinely, not just because I'm sitting up here on this podcast, without seeing the actual model of fathers and sons, of brothers, like getting to watch you and Pastor Steve Robinson today, sharpening each other, how to do this thing of family together, raising up sons and daughters in the house, I don't think I would have had
Yeah.
the appropriate awareness. Even when Pastor Jacob, mutual friend, he started leaning into my life 7 or 8 years ago, and I was extremely skeptical because I'm like, you want me to fly, but you want me to be a kite. Like you want to control the string down here from the earth while I'm, you know. And so it took time to build trust, and by the 1000th prayer. And celebration and gifts to my kids, I'm like, okay, this dude could care less if I get one more Grammy or
he's
start a church or whatever.
Yeah.
But it showed me, okay, this is how you become a father.
Right.
So now I have actual model for
It's
it.
great.
And I think we were missing that. And I would just encourage anyone that's watching, you have to get into the environment where you're seeing health.
Yes.
Or you won't even know what health looks like.
Right. That's a personal development principle, right? Like there's never been more information, more podcasts, more content, more downloads, but there's a big difference between tell me a bunch of information and show me. Like you say all the time, how about a little less talk and a lot more action? Let's model it for people. You can't just tell somebody, hey, be a father. You have to model it for them so that they can walk behind you in it.
And I think that we are in a current church world, and I don't think there's as big a difference between church and business or anything, where I appreciate what you said, you know, there's these generational principles, but I'm always careful because I have young adults and kids out of the house now, and different ones at different phases, and a whole generation of young people at our church.
Sure.
We're a multi-generational church. I'm now at the phase where, you know, the person who approves my expense report was one of the first 4 kids in the youth group. Okay, it's like so that's where I'm at.
Wild.
Yeah,
and there's an art to bringing them to the table at the appropriate times, but also not continuing. We get upset because they act like kids, but when they're not kids, you have to bring them to the table. I say you have to at some point actually. The shift, even in the teenage years, to start pulling that chair around on your side of the table.
Yes.
So I'm not talking across the table, but I'm talking to you. But I do believe there was a proportionate level generationally that the messaging, right? And that's why even this podcast, What's My Heart, I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I do believe that you want to listen. You got to think about who you're listening to.
Yes.
You got to think about what's the fruit that they produce. Yes. And I think the narrative was, because I heard it in seminary, you know, don't get close to the people, like don't be friends with your staff. There was a very positional,
100%.
Positional narrative.
I've been in rooms where it's like, your staff and your team is not your family.
Wow.
Do not say that this is your family. Can they come in your house and get stuff out of your refrigerator at any time? That is not your family.
Wow.
Can they go sleep in your bed?
A lot of mine do, actually.
I'm like, okay, I understand that. There are team dynamics and functions of a family.
Right.
So it's a team. But I'm a family guy.
Yes.
Right.
I'm like, no, come live with me.
Right.
You will be a better human in a year. I promise you.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's always been a rub to me, and that kind of like arm's length away thing doesn't even compute to this generation, in my opinion. True. If you can't show me you love me holistically, then you don't love me.
Right.
You know.
You're hearing their phrasing over and over. We had a young leader tell us this weekend in between one of our services. One of the comments she was making about coming visiting was, I felt like I was seen.
Yeah.
I felt like I was known. That's such a high priority to be seen and to be known. That's just a heart that I want to be a part of something that's a
and
family.
And then you sent her a link to my YouTube. Fully known. Little plug, huh? You can download it, TaurenWells.com. Just kidding.
You know, I began to analyze that, but now I'm sitting from my seat. I'm always cognizant of not everybody sits in my seat.
Yep.
You now sit in the seat, and you went from national expert to now. Local
idiot. That's what Pastor Jacob says.
That's what he says.
Yes.
So, and you're doing a phenomenal job. But I think I began to ask the question, why did they become arrow throwers, or as you said, assault? Why did they become? And I don't think every one of them started out totally with that intention.
Right.
No.
I think they got hurt by people. And I would say to any leader, the level that you're going to go to will be your ability to process the conflict, the disappointment, and the hurts that you gather along the way.
Yes.
And I just decided I'm not going to move into a castle, draw up the drawbridge, look out the window, and say, you guys, can come visit at Christmas maybe.
Yes.
I'm just gonna work through the pain.
Yes.
We've all had it.
Yeah.
And not begin to broad brush. Every person in the next generation doesn't have grit, doesn't want to work,
really
doesn't
true.
want to do. So because I don't have to believe in the next generation today necessarily.
Yeah.
But my values, you have many teachers, but you don't have many fathers, and I have that as a conviction. So therefore, I'm going to press past. I'm honestly in a major learning curve right now about the next generation and trying to understand different things and have conversations with them.
Yep.
So I think that's such a rich concept that I think sometimes people give up on, but there's so much reward. Anything in life,
It's so important.
anything in life that's really valuable
Yes.
has a cost to it.
Yes.
It's true.
And that's actual legacy.
Right.
That's actual legacy, is people doing what they never could have done without you, but able to do it without you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's legacy.
Right.
And I think even as a young leader, I've got that lens,
Yeah.
So
in some senses, if we're not secure, and the reason we might be insecure is because of hurts. Just if this is a sermon,
Yeah.
we build our points.
come on.
Yeah.
The second thing is how we overcome that insecurity or that hurt. So we might have real reason for
Yes.
why we are, but I do believe at its very root is what you call zero sum.
Yeah.
I grew up with two sisters, and so on Saturday morning, my parents were not wealthy, we had food, but there was like one box of cereal, not five. And I knew if I didn't beat them.
The question is it on the top of the fridge or was it in a pantry?
No, it's above the stove.
There you go.
It's like,
All right,
you pull that out,
Yeah.
and only if you'd been good did you get like the good cereal.
Yeah,
This
right.
is like the no brand,
Yeah.
not
Wheaties.
the real Lucky Charms,
Yeah.
the fake ones,
Yeah,
right?
Fruity Loops.
And I know if I didn't get up before them on Saturday, they would go eat all of it.
Yeah.
And so the zero sum concept is the pie has only so many pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if my son, friend, person, colleague, church across town,
Yeah.
if they take 4 pieces of the pie,
Yes.
I have less pie.
Yep.
It's not true.
No.
It's just
Yeah.
not true.
No.
They call it in business, they call it the difference between an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you're finding, I think just listening to both of you guys, this Saul concept is really finding your value and worth in your results as opposed to in this infinite God. Our value, if we find it in our results, is finite. It is zero sum.
Right.
But once as in ministry as a leader, that's why you have to find your identity in who Jesus says you are, because he is truly abundant. And one of the things I appreciate about you're an abundance thinker. You challenge me in that all the time. Like it's easy for us to think, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And to let fear drive it, as opposed to, no, God's way bigger than that. He has way more than we need. We got to get out of scarcity and into abundance.
Yes, absolutely.
Go ahead. What did
I
you
was going
say?
to say, my final little tag is you can either overcome that or compensate for it.
Yeah.
Right.
And the compensation part is where the danger happens, and then you end up hurting people that actually wanted to believe in you and love you and be led by you.
Oh, man.
So behind the scenes, like why and how did you come into this season of music and different things you've done?
Yeah.
I want to talk about that, and
Yeah.
then I want to talk about the transition to the church world, because I think a lot of people would like to hear that. When we were back 2016, you were just starting to travel some.
Yeah.
You were still working at a local church.
Yeah.
You were just kind of doing your deal.
Yeah.
Like what was happening in you with that as you started writing these songs?
Well, I'll give you the abbreviated kind of version. Got saved when I was 9 years old, started singing in the choir, 16, had a great youth pastor come to our church. I'm like, hey, I'm in the youth group. I'm excited. We're going to have a youth group. That's awesome. He was like, oh, bud, it's going to be a few years before you can get in it. I'm like, bro, I'm 16. I can be in it now. And so I jumped in that, and amazing guy. And ended up just being at the church every day after school. It was in walking distance from my junior high school and high school. And so I was just at church and setting up stuff. And I led worship, but I really loved setting up the chairs and vacuuming the carpet and stealing construction equipment from every local construction site because that's how you decorated youth rooms in 2002. So it was like all of that kind of stuff. And then I would invite my friends. I went to public school. So my friends were coming to our church basement and getting saved and going back to school. They're like, hey, could you help me like stop cussing? I'm like, yeah, I'll punch you every time you swear because that's, hell, fire and brimstone type church. So I love the process of, even as a young person, people realizing there was more than getting drunk on Friday night.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I fell in love with ministry, which led me to go to ministry school. Went to a small Bible college in Indianapolis, Indiana. I traveled in a group there. You had to audition to sing in this group that toured, and I did not make it the first year, so I needed to work on my vocals. My wife, we weren't married at the time, obviously, but she came in on a vocal scholarship, so she was a baller, and I didn't even make the team. And so the next year, I got on that, and that was my first, I knew about Michael Jackson and NSYNC and all of that stuff growing up, but all that happened on another planet.
Right.
Like, it wasn't on my phone where I saw
There you go.
they're at
That
my
makes
local
true.
venue.
Yeah, there you go.
It was on television.
Right.
Michael Jackson's on another planet right now where all of this is happening. So my initial context for even the idea of being a music artist or touring was traveling with my college band. So you called the pastors and you slept on the couch and you ate pizza and you led worship and rinse and repeat. So I started a band out of school because I'm like, kids don't want to hear choirs. And then Kanye did it, and then everyone's like, oh, I love choir. No, you didn't. You made fun of us. So I'm like, let's start a band. Bands are cool. So we started a band. It was actually like ministry, like one-stop ministry on wheels. We bought this old 15-passenger van, and me and 5 guys, we would roll up into a city, small little church. We'd do a concert on Friday night. We'd do outreach. On Saturday. Our guitar player would preach. On Sunday morning, our keyboard player would do kids ministry. And then we would do a big night Sunday night, And I wasn't preaching in any of these environments. Always somebody else doing that. But it was just the love for ministry. Ended up getting signed to a record label as a band. And then, there just came a point of decision between me and the band. I really wanted to move from St. Louis, where we were at the time, to Houston to do an internship at a church. They all wanted to move to Nashville to do the music thing. And I was just like, guys, I just want to go be in this church environment, and maybe we can do both. So we ended up doing both. Got signed. I got married the same year I got signed. We continued to tour for a few years. We got 2 Grammy nominations. Awesome. We had a lot of critical acclaim, but we didn't have a lot of practical success.
Right.
So we were out there on the road 200 days a year.
Wow.
Dying. I got married and left for 6 weeks.
Wow.
My wife calls me while I'm out week 3, find out her dad's been diagnosed with leukemia.
Wow.
The church splits because it's an interracial marriage. So, my wife is white and I'm mixed, so black and white. So it caused a huge rift in the church. So we were immediately thrown into tons of turmoil and trauma and difficulty. So it really caused me to pivot to I'm going to have to lay down the band thing and be home. So I told the label, hey guys, I'm just going to be local church, not going to do this, and broke up the band and everything. Really, really, really difficult decision. And then the label called and said, well, what if you just continued as a solo artist and you can still do church work and all that? We'll work with you on all that. I'm like, cool, I'll do that. So I was locked in, started as a youth intern, then creative director, then experienced pastor. And once I was a part of the pastor's family, I had a lot more influence than I probably earned. But that's where the love, just for every component of ministry, it was.
So I want to frame a couple of things, because a lot of people, are like, hey, I want to do that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you?
I just have to say it because it's not said enough about anything. Not
Right,
just
really true.
not just music.
They see the outcome, but they don't
They
see
the
process.
outcome,
Yeah.
but do you love it enough
Yeah.
to sleep on the pastor's couch?
That's
do
it.
you love it enough
Yes.
to get in the fan? Do you love it enough? Whatever it is.
Yes.
Pain is the admission price for destiny.
Ooh, that's powerful.
So you gotta know if you're really willing to pay the price.
Are you willing to pay the price? And you only pay the price if you're called and you
Right.
have the love.
That's the
Because
only
love
way.
motivates. Love's the
Yes.
highest motivator.
Yes.
So I hear that. The second thing I hear is there were some conviction-based decisions that on paper did not look like they
Right.
were a promotion.
Correct.
And really long term, you see this in people's lives. There's a love, a passion. I'll do it, whatever I get paid. It doesn't matter if I got to. I'm just doing the stuff, right?
Right.
The second thing you see is they're even willing to lay Isaac on the altar. They're willing.
really good.
The moment you get the promise,
Yeah.
there's generally in the story of anybody a time where, out of conviction,
Yes.
I'm not worshiping even that thing that I love,
Yes.
Right.
or that I do, or that I'm gifted at.
Yes.
I'm living out of conviction to honor God.
Big
Yes.
deal, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where you see substance. So
Yes.
keep going.
Yes.
Those are two things that we have to frame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm glad you did. Because to me, although I love music, and I feel like if I didn't do music on some level, I would die. It's
Right.
a part of how
Sure.
God wired me.
Right.
But my love and passion is church ministry. It's seeing people come alive in their relationship with Jesus and in their calling. And so those initial moments, even in Bible college, I was rallying people in Bible college. Let's go downtown. Let's
Yeah.
serve the homeless. Let's thirst quenchers.
Right.
Let's go hand out water. We
Yeah.
can't afford Sprite.
Yeah.
We were dreaming about planting a church in Mountain View, Colorado as
Wow.
college students. I'm asking my professor, what would you think about a team moving to a city to start a church?
That's awesome.
Desperation Band was at New Life. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you can use music as a spearhead of a local movement,
Right.
How do we do that? That was what my heart was galvanized around. And then a year out of college, I read Launch by Nelson Searcy. And he painted this practical picture of you can set up church in a high school cafeteria and start carving out your own thing. That's what was in my heart
Wow.
Yeah.
at 21.
It's awesome.
So my only framework for music was, God, how are you using this to help me get to the
makes
church?
sense.
Love it.
And
Totally different paradigm.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah.
and there were 10 off-ramps
Yeah.
Right.
that I was wishing
Yeah.
I would have taken or could have taken along the way, but God said, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet.
So what's been your biggest, and obviously you have a lot of
I'm
context
getting
for it,
hype
but
right now.
you're
though.
getting
I'm not even on coffee.
Yeah.
C4. This is what the church does, dude. Fired up.
That's awesome.
What though was your biggest surprise with so much context, so much understanding, stepping into the senior pastor role? What was, not a lot of people maybe listening. There's probably several senior pastors. There's maybe some thinking, evaluating, should I be that? But it's really just a principle that I'm trying to get to. It's really more of a deeper principle, because I think a lot of people believe back to winning if I had the position, right?
Yeah, that's true.
If you're winning because you're in charge.
Yes. If
Okay.
I was that, yeah.
So, but winners win at whatever. What I'm hearing you say, they're winning or growing or progressing,
bearing fruit.
wherever.
I would say.
But what was your biggest surprise, even though you read all the books
Yeah, right.
in real life? Because I was there, I've been there, I've watched the journey. It's been amazing what God's done through Whitestone. I mean, it's amazing what God's doing.
You can shape the post answer how you want, but this is probably not the answer that we're looking for. The biggest surprise to me has been the level of submission it takes.
Wow.
To operate in the fullness of your potential.
Yeah.
Because I think like in your mind, and this wasn't even my framework, but maybe it was. It's like you're the decision maker.
Right.
Right.
Like you're the man. You're the lead creative. You're you know, and it's really it's what Paul said, like I gave you access to every part of my life.
Yep. I did not shrink back. The Ephesians church, where he's leaving Ephesus, I did not shrink back from declaring to you everything that I had.
Yes.
Yeah.
But from opening up my whole life to you, and that requires incredible submission.
Right.
And I understand the biblical hierarchy of authority.
Right.
But it's really an upside down triangle
because
you're submitting as the senior leader. You're submitting yourself as the lowest servant.
Very true.
Wow.
Because you are called to leverage everything that you possess for the glory of God and the good of others.
Yeah.
That is the role of a servant.
Yeah.
And if you can't be submitted to a pastor, there's no way you're going to be submitted to the needs of your people.
So true.
Because it's the same muscle. And I don't think I realized that. What unlocked it for me, though, was when my wife and I first really wanted to go plant in 2016, right in there. We went and talked to my father-in-law, and he said, I'm so glad God's opened your heart to pastoring. Go ahead and go get back to work. It was like, you're not going anywhere right now. What are you? Absolutely not. And then we came back to him a little bit later, and it was like, hey, we really think we should be doing this. I'm so glad God has opened your heart to pastoring. Just keep letting him do it. Then we went through a process, and ultimately it culminated in us sitting in his office and saying, here are the choices we feel like God is giving us to make. You're our pastor, and we can't make them without you. We submit this process to you. And he said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm releasing you into what God has called you to do. And he said, I want you to notice that your submission has led to your advancement.
There you go.
It's really
And
good.
it was literally from that point, my
Such
whole
good.
world opened up.
Such an important point, right? Like so first of all, it's love, it's fruit, it's consistency. It doesn't always look like it. It's conviction. I'm living out of conviction, not I got a convenient opportunity. Most people think if I had more opportunities, actually opportunities require more conviction.
Right.
They don't understand the more freedom. Oh, I wish I was in charge, or if I had that.
Yeah.
There are freedoms you have, but in a lot of ways you have less freedoms.
Right.
Yes.
Because now you are responsible to serve in a different way. So such good. And then some were sent,
Yes.
and some just went.
Yes.
And there's a spiritual principle in that. The
Yes.
Apostle Paul saw Jesus. He was struck blind. He wrote 2/3 of the New. I told a young guy the other day, I was like, you're deeper than Paul.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yes.
It's like you have new insights. This guy. And they still submitted to the church at Antioch.
true.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
We're talking about the guy who, okay, so You submitted it, so therefore there's a intangible
Yeah.
that creates tangible blessing
100%.
on those. And I think a lot of people underestimate that. They're like that, but they don't understand
Right.
all those convictions and
Yes.
testings and the
Yes.
heart and the hidden and the unseen.
It is the
And
currency of elevation.
It is.
There you go.
It's not preaching gift. It's not teaching, organizational mind, financial stewardship. All
That's
that
true.
stuff is amazing. You look at any move of God that lasts,
Right.
there's a submitted leader.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking about when you're talking about it, the surprise. I've been a senior pastor since I was 21, right? So I don't think through the lens of as much, like my role or spot. And actually, as our church has grown, if you want to be team, which I believe teams win championships.
1000%.
If we're going to be winners,
Right.
got to have a team.
Yes.
I actually spend a lot more of my time building consensus and helping everyone and listening to the voice of God. Make no mistake. If I know that I'm supposed to, it's
Yeah,
like, guys,
that's
okay,
where we're
we're
going.
doing this.
Right.
Absolutely.
Very seldom do I play the God card.
Yes.
Very, very seldom. I mean, you only get a few, you know what I mean?
Hey, it better be God.
Yeah, that's true.
If
You
you're
won't
gonna
get a few of
say
those.
God, I'd be
Yes.
like, man, I really feel this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
This could be God.
Yeah.
Could be me.
But if you're a leader leaning on overly spiritual language too much, it means you're probably not
Right.
submitted enough in your heart
Yeah.
to the importance of your team.
Excellent.
Because if I'm building
It's
with
really
my
good.
team, then I don't have to play the God card because the Holy Spirit's only speaking one language.
Yes.
And if you have to tell everybody you're the leader when you walk in the room, you're probably not the leader.
That's true.
Wow.
You're probably not.
Yeah.
But I love what I'm hearing you say, that humility. I'm preaching this weekend on Colossians. Clothe yourself in humility. So you got to put that coat on every day. And that consensus building the team into their buy-in. Our church now and staff, as you continue to grow, I could say, thus says the Lord.
Right.
But
Yeah.
because there's so much of not creating, a father doesn't create codependency.
Right.
A father creates adults who have the heart who can execute. I'm not trying to get them to live at my house the whole time, the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So therefore they got opinions and they have ownership. So there's so much of it is building that into your message. The guitar,
Yes.
it's the harmony
Yes.
of all of those notes together that make the beautiful song.
Yes.
That's the power of the body of Christ.
Yes.
Right.
And people don't want attachment; they want autonomy. I want to do what I want to do when I want to
Right.
do it. I don't want to answer to anybody. And I think
Yeah.
that's why you got a lot of people planting churches. They
Wow.
couldn't submit.
Wow.
True.
So they said,
true.
instead of submitting here, I'm going to go do my own thing.
Yes, someone
Yeah.
was saying, one of the struggles they see in church planners right now is there's a lot of people going that are more went than sent, which
Oh,
God
wow.
is the only one that truly has
Sure.
the matrix for
Right.
evaluating the heart on that. But if we had more fathers who were willing to release and sons who were willing to trust,
Wow.
Right.
then we would
That's
have a
big.
higher success rate
Yes.
True.
of church plants.
Yes.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
I'm new
that's
here,
in,
guys, but
that's in all scopes
realize
though,
that.
because I was just with we were just together, a bunch of pastors. And because you are a senior pastor, but you are known in the body of Christ in the creative space. The topic of conversation is, well, there's so much, back to autonomy. So how do you bring a group of creatives? How do you bring a group of video people together? And I'm telling you, I was just with some of these guys have great churches, and they're like, well, we've just kind of given up. We're just going to subcontract or buy this. You can't build a worship team, a video team, this and that because and some have needed. Health is not everybody has to
Yeah,
work
doing the
for
same.
you, but what we're
100%.
trying to mitigate against is the premature people
Yes.
stepping out before God's fully formed in them what he wants to form in them. And a lot of churches have just given up on that being possible.
yes. And I think a part of that is pressure to compete with things that have taken 25 and 30 years to build.
Wow.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just, leaving a Lakewood, stepping into our thing, having a national presence already. Yay, international. I had to throw some KJV in there.
So when you just stood on that stage to preach, you just felt powerful, no matter what
Powerful,
you felt
bro.
like.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's the opposite effect.
No.
You step up on the stage at Lakewood, it's like, oh, Jesus, what have I got myself into? It's just, it's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in.
But you carry those expectations of whatever that context is.
Right.
And you want that immediately.
Right.
Yes.
And one thing Mayo so well helped me with was like, he was like, Tauren, your church can be a lot of things. What it can't be is an established church.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Liberate yourself in your team
Yeah.
Right. It's
from
really
thinking you have to have what took 60 years,
Right.
30
Yeah.
years
Yes.
to build right now.
Yes.
Right.
So we've pulled back. We don't stream our services. I went into it with COVID brain,
Yeah.
thinking we have to stream
Everything,
day
yeah,
one.
from day
Yeah,
one,
yeah, yeah.
And I sat back. First of all, I was looking at the budget,
Yeah.
and cameras are expensive, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking at that thing like,
Yeah.
do we have to stream? And I started thinking, before COVID, like, barely anyone streamed, and fewer than that streamed
Sure.
well.
Right.
Why is this now an expectation? So it's backing off. I'm using that as a small example to back off of
We-
external pressure.
We were talking about iteration.
Yes.
So your
Yes.
youth group is here.
Yes.
Take the best next step to become
Yes.
better. Don't start with streaming.
Yeah.
Right.
Start with getting a projector
Yes.
that works.
Yes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Don't hire to solve an immediate problem when you could build to solve generations of problems you'll never
Wow.
have. That's the shift.
That's the shift.
It's very difficult to do.
That's the
though.
long game, right?
It's very difficult to
Honest.
do.
Yeah.
And especially when you have a view. When I was in a little small furniture store, pastoring a church at 23 years old,
Yeah.
I didn't really know
Right.
that I wasn't good. I went home and I thought, I'm the best pastor in America.
Yeah.
But now you know
Right.
Yes.
what is good or not good.
The
and
standard
so the
seems to be.
standard is higher.
Yes.
But I want to drill back into the heart of that creative leader, that film guy, that these people helping us right now with this podcast, or the people that lead on this stage we're sitting on or whatever. Obviously, we're not where we want to be, but we're not where we used to be.
Yeah.
And we're further down the road in the commitment to, I want more for you. Like,
Yeah.
embrace the process.
Yes.
You can push eject, and if that's God's plan for you, you can move to Nashville and you could be the next greatest recording artist.
Right.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's that.
It's a long shot.
We'll press pause right there.
Yeah.
Can you be an actual photographer out there that makes money every weekend doing editorial shoots for Nike and
Yeah.
and Fossil and all of that? Can you? Because I know that your friends tell you can, and you think that you deserve that pay.
Wow.
But until you've actually done it, how can you qualify a 6-figure salary to hold the camera? That said, we need pastors who
Yeah.
may be more analytical than creative, so to speak, who value actual creative gifts.
Exactly.
Because there's not a more misused, overlooked, and underpaid group
Yeah.
of people in the church than the creative teams.
It's true.
Because creativity is an intangible value add
Right.
that you don't really see it until it's a cover wrapped around a book.
It's true.
But the creativity that it takes to capture a moment in worship that actually communicates the heart and soul
So
of your
good.
church is an actual spiritual gift that's just as valuable as the
Right.
person
So
putting
true.
the spreadsheets together.
So true.
Sure.
The person doing the spreadsheets has a more tangible expression
Right.
of
Right.
their gift, but it doesn't make it more valuable.
Yes.
And so I think the church has hollowed out creative people because they have not appropriately applied value.
That's good. It's on both sides of the
It's
equation.
on both sides.
It's on
and
both
that's what I'm
sides.
trying to get to.
It's on both sides.
You may not be as sweet as you think you are, but if you lock in, you could become more than you ever thought.
Yeah.
That's
If you have a
great, yeah.
pastor that adds value to you and gives you opportunity and resources.
That's
That's really,
so
really
good.
good.
And that what you just said is worth the whole podcast
Yeah.
because there's hundreds of leaders out there and again, it isn't just the senior pastor, it's all areas of the church or wherever who are asking, is it possible for these people to be used within the church, because we begin to tell ourselves these narratives.
Yes.
Right?
There you go.
I was just with a group of pastors. Well, you built a building because you're in Keller, but I'm over here, and I have to keep reminding them, no, actually, I didn't build it. God's provision through his people built it, but I also built one in a small town in Wise County when I was 23.
Yes.
God built a building in a place there hadn't been one built since the 50s.
Right.
So it's all relative.
Yes, exactly.
There's a pros and cons to every environment. So we in the church are now telling ourselves this narrative. A young person can sit with their laptop on a beach in Tahiti and make $100,000. Why would they ever work for the church?
Yeah.
And that narrative is killing us from what
damaging.
you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's on both sides.
Yes.
And they feel
absolutely.
intimidated. They feel like I can't connect, I can't talk to them. And I would imagine from a distance they'd look at someone like you, Tauren, and be like, well, he's a creative, so of course it's going to be easier for him to talk to them and connect with them and get them to feel like he knows where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Has that been your experience? Are you still in the middle of processing?
Well, I would speak to that and just say that's why you need a coach.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just need a coach to help you with a capital campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
People are capital.
Yes.
That's right.
highest
The
capital,
most
yeah.
important resource you have
So true.
Truly true.
is people.
And that's
True.
the thing that Jesus asked us to take care of. He said, if you love me, feed my sheep.
It's his highest value.
Yes.
So I'm in on the building. We need one. We need
Yes.
land. I'm here to absorb everything that I do not have, and there's a lot I'm lacking.
Yeah.
But there are people who can, just like this conversation, help you frame what do I need to be attractive to creatives?
It's great.
Yes.
What do I need to be attractive to minority communities in my
Yes.
That's
city?
great.
It's true.
What,
That's awesome.
There are people who will tell you, you just have to be willing to hear what you don't want to
Yeah.
hear.
Exactly
Big part
true.
of it.
I asked you that question. Did I not?
You did.
I want to be a church that represents my community.
Yes.
And our community is becoming more diverse.
Yes.
In where I live, but you gave me a couple of thoughts of things I could do, and I want to tell you, just to report, we're making progress
Yes,
as a
well, I've
church.
seen it.
We're getting better
Yes.
at being more representative of our community, and that's because of receiving input from
Well,
you. So
and
I
you
want to say
asked
thank
me
you.
a question about church before I was ever even a pastor. Like, I don't know if that really hits people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Pastored 3 churches. This one's going pretty well. And you have the awareness and the humility to ask me, who has not built anything outside of a music career, which I really can't even take credit for, how would you solve this problem? And the best I could give you at that time was theory.
No, you gave me some very good practicals.
But it just goes to the point of,
And it had to do with my messaging. I had the heart, but you can have the heart, but if you don't actually say it,
yes,
or if you don't, and you know what you may not remember this, the actual thing was built around what we were doing in the moment. Was me asking someone who looks different than me.
yeah,
And by the way, excluding people is not just on the basis of skin color.
100%.
It can be generational. It can be,
Yes.
that guy sings songs. What does he know about what I'm
Right.
doing?
exactly.
We can diminish
Right.
one of the persons
Yes, exactly.
that has something to deposit because
Yeah.
we're not
Good.
curious. I talk about curiosity a lot. So I'm
big
asking
deal.
you that.
Huge.
And you actually told me, by me validating someone different than me,
Yes.
and communicating to my church that I learned, this is not a political propaganda speech.
Exactly.
You were
issue
saying you
oriented.
do
Yeah.
that.
No.
You just need to tell people.
Right.
Exactly.
And so I began to start interjecting and having Dr. Darius on my podcast, having you on this podcast, showing people the interfacing and the interaction of people that look different generationally, background, color, and that's the beauty of the body of Christ.
Yes, exactly.
That's the beauty.
Yes.
And so that's a powerful thing. What would you, I think a lot of this podcast is probably going to be, you probably don't go to a Lead to Win podcast if you're not at some level
Yeah.
trying to think about what are some things I need to be thinking about. And I'm always, I do believe anyone who's curious, who's growing, has things they can share with us. But I do believe when you dig down in, so if you like dig down in me, I'm going to talk to you about probably winning with your family. That's what you and I talk a lot about, is you being a new senior pastor, and I think about kids, and then we talk a little bit about assimilating people, like helping them feel a part of the church, because you are so good on the platform. You're great. You asked me the other day, how can I coach on your preaching?
Yes.
I'm like, bro,
I need it.
No,
I do.
I watched one of your messages the other day. Like, my titles are boring. You were like, go get more pots. I'm like,
yeah.
That sounds intriguing. I'm gonna watch 20. Mine's like discipleship.
Well,
and so, anyway, what I'm digging for, I could talk about things. If you dig with those, are gonna come out. I want, in our final moments, what would you like if they said, this is your moment, this is your microphone, I want to just give the deposit. If those people listening, we've heard your background, we've learned there's more to it than just hosting the Dove Awards.
And all the success.
Yeah.
I think you do good at hosting Dove Awards too, because
Thank
you're
you.
humble. You're kind of self-effacing. People who are funny are usually people who don't take themselves too serious. That's all good. That's not what we're talking about. What would you?
It's valuable.
What would you though say, man? If I could just share or offer, what would it be? What, something that just comes out of your heart?
Man, so many things. I think the most critical part of my journey has actually been the moments when I've been most willing to face my own pain. And we just talked about this in the cohort. Pastor Steve Robinson slayed. I don't even know if the kids say that anymore, but it was unbelievable.
Wasn't it so good?
The soul of the leader.
The soul of the leader.
And I was trying to communicate it to my wife, and I was like, there's no way. And then I went to get the notes, and we're going to have to talk to him, because I think he's holding back on the notes because he's writing a book.
He's going to write a book,
it.
and everybody needs to get it. Yeah.
Going to need that book. It will be a must-have. But I just thank God that He gave me, in His grace and provision, enough of what He knew other people would value to allow people to give me a chance to lead them. Because one of my number one questions going into the particular area we were in was, will white families attend our church? The flip side to that question might surprise people. The second one was, will black families
Makes sense.
attend our church?
Right.
And it was like very scary of who will allow. And what I realized is that God was clothing me in the appropriate experiences and platforms to where it really didn't matter. I showed up to a place where people had already bought into me. So my ethnicity and my age and all of that was irrelevant.
Right.
Yet His grace in that process, which may appear on some levels to be glamorous, and in some ways it is, and in other ways it's not. But before we really went into this journey, I had to deal with me. And I had just enough success to instigate the process of needing to make sure my heart was whole, not a hole.
Yeah.
And if He would have released me into the season of my life with the same wounds, then this whole thing would crumble.
Yeah.
But in that very important season of gestation of that seed, where the enemy attacks the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like he attacks right
Yes.
before the thing.
Right.
Right.
He gave me grace to be able to sit down and deal with my heart and the fragmentation of my mind. And I didn't have that language for it at the time, but to integrate
Yeah.
my life.
Right.
And I think that's really what I'm most passionate about. That's why our Whitestone vision is to help people discover their God-authored identity.
Very good.
Because if you're ever going to discover you have to discover the God who created you.
Yes.
And your pain doesn't disqualify you
Right.
from being in his presence. His presence is the place that you actually process it.
Yes.
And so that would be any leader on any level.
Right.
You have unprocessed pain.
Right.
It's true.
And especially even in ministry now, it's the consistent,
True.
relentless
Yes.
True.
pain over and over again. So tomorrow I'm meeting with the counselor that I started meeting with in 2015 because I'm not dealing with the same issues, but I want to make sure that my heart is whole through this whole
Right.
process.
So
So
good.
that's what kind of flows out of me,
Good for you.
like holiness.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's really what holiness means.
Right.
It is a completion of
Yes.
the mind, soul, body, spirit. And so whatever you have to do to get into a space where you can deal with yourself, I think you just have to do it.
That's so
It's really
incredible.
good.
So incredible.
awesome.
Well, I've learned so much from you, but for whatever it's worth, as an older brother, I'm very proud of you for your posture. And I know you behind the scenes. I'm just thankful for your posture, and even you being together for the last little bit, and then you saying, "Hey, I'm going to go and I want to check this," and keeping that purity of heart, that's coming out. And when you were talking, I was thinking about the Samaritan woman, right? And you're talking about pain, right? And how we get so identified. I was 28 when I started the church. I was like, well, will anybody with a job come here, right? Or now I'm on the reverse side, right? We go through COVID, and I'm a white pastor wanting a more diverse church because I love people, period. I love them, right? And then we got into all these discussions about stuff, and I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm losing, right? So, but at the end of the day, the Samaritan woman's story does have a both spiritual and ethnic tension in it.
For sure.
It does.
Major.
But it was not necessarily as religious at first, and I don't want to go into all the complexities because I've studied it.
Yeah.
It's actually much more complex than people realize. It's different than just those people are across the tracks or those people look different.
Right.
But what we have to keep remembering, she just needed that water.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And there are other factors, but what I'm committed to and what I hear you saying is we got to keep having that living water, and we got to keep being the people that will pass that way for whoever they are, for whatever reason their pain is there, and say, hey, there's a water
Yes.
that you can get a hold
for
of.
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
For you.
Does not discriminate.
It does not, and
Yep.
it can come and it'll satisfy you.
Yes.
And so, thank you for being on here.
Awesome.
Man, what
And,
a joy.
We celebrate everything
Seriously.
you're doing, and what a joy! There will be joy. And your book's coming out. That's coming this year. I know you're going to come share with our church a little bit about it, and I'm so
hyped.
looking forward
May
to that.
20th.
May 20th is
Joy
the
Bomb.
release. Yeah,
Yep,
Joy
we're all
Bomb.
excited about it.
Joy Bomb.
What a
Yeah,
great
so
title.
real quick. So it is for people that are trying to fight for joy.
Yeah.
This is not like some feel good, like a
Yeah.
spoonful of sugar helps the
Right.
medicine go down.
Yeah.
This is so the very first thing Jesus talks about in his very first sermon ever that someone wrote down starts with the word blessed,
Yeah, there you
which
go.
we know means happy.
Yes.
You mean to tell me the Son of
Right.
God
Yes.
starts his entire ministry
Yes.
on the foundational word happy.
Yes.
And it led me to ask the question, how important to the heart of God must human happiness be if it's the first thing Jesus chooses to talk about?
No, it's
so good.
But the way that he shows us to get there is the upside down
opposite way
kingdom. So I'm
Man,
really
I
excited
love
about
it.
We can't wait. We're excited. Well,
Yes,
I
sir.
want to thank both of you guys. What an incredible conversation. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we look forward to you guys joining us next time for the Lead to Win podcast.